Hi, I am Dana Connors, President of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back to the Maine Take. Yes, it's Tuesday, not Monday, but that's because Monday was a holiday, and we promised to bring you this program every week to talk about the issues, the ideas, some of the initiatives at work in our state to help people as well as our economy to grow into the future. This week, as in the past, we begin with an in depth discussion with an honored guest. And this week, it's the president of the community college system, David Daigler. We'll follow that interview with some talk with our lobbyist, our advocacy team here at the state chamber about what's taken place this week or upcoming in the Maine legislature. And we'll conclude, as we always do, with a reflection on some of the thoughts and ideas that have been expressed here today. So let me begin, as I mentioned, welcoming the president of the Maine Community College System, David Daigler. David, it's great having you with us today.
Well, Dana, I appreciate being here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, let me introduce you briefly to our audience. David is somebody that's been with the Maine Community College System for over 20 years. A good part of his career has been devoted to that very important part of any job, that's financing. He started at I think it's the Southern Maine Community College in that area, but would advance to the system-wide financial director, later named vice president, and in 2019 became president of the community college system. And as you're about to find out, he not only has a very important job, he is very committed to be sure that the people that come out of his system are prepared for the economy of today. David, let me begin our program today by reflecting for a moment. It was 2000, roughly 15, and the Maine Development Foundation, the Maine State Chamber of Commerce teamed up to do a series of what we called Making Maine Work. We looked at the workforce from 2 points of view. One was to grow the economy, and the other was to prepare our people for the economy. There were two things in preparing our people for the economy that I remember to this day. And frankly, I think we've addressed it very, very well, I might add. The first one was really a national statistic, but it brought to mind a very glaring problem that the United States have had, and to an extent, we probably were experiencing something similar. Maybe not to the same extent, but experiencing it nevertheless. And this is what the statistics said. When you interviewed the educational community on a nationwide basis, and you asked them how their people were being prepared for the economy, they said they were 72% ready. When you asked the business community, their answer was 42% ready. That was a significant gap. Yeah. At the same time, in that report, it made us aware of the fact that we have put, to use an old term, all of our eggs in one basket. It seemed that we were encouraging everybody to pursue a 4-year degree at a college level, a master's degree or a PhD, and we unintentionally avoided the emphasis and the priorities associated with the trades, with the skills. And that caught everyone's attention. It did not take away from the 4-year degree at your university or college level, but it said you've got to reach out into this other area. You've got to understand the economy of today. And that was followed up by what I found to be a very significant effort on behalf of education and the business community. The effort was called Maine Spark, and it brought together education, business community. They worked through education from the very young to the adult promise. And they said, by 2025, 60% of our people are going to have a credential of value, either a degree, a 2-year degree, a skill, a credential, a certificate. Boy, I think that sets it up in a way that really demonstrates what the community college new life is, where they are today, and the things that you all are doing to address that very issue. Speak to that, because I know the strategic plan you have really married into that for the state. I should say strategic plan for the state. You've really bought into that, and you're doing some things around that that really help us grow the economy.
Well, Dana, start with a strategic plan. 2 of the 7 foundational goals of the strategic plan are about talent. One is to grow our talent internally. The other is to help encourage people who have talent to come to Maine. But it's important to understand that it's about talent. It's about a skill and the skill development. So, and you focused on a survey that was done a few years ago, and the differences between what educators thought they were doing in terms of preparing people for their future job, and what really the employers themselves thought about that. And so, increasingly, there's actually been there's been another set of changes that have sort of transformed all of that, and both have to do with technology. So growth of technology in the workforce has been incredible, and it's had a huge impact on workforce development, and on the skills needed to get ahead. And where we see growth in our programs is in those programs or those programmatic areas where we are married up closely to business. We're talking to a specific business about the skills they need for the jobs at hand. And even during this pandemic, there are incredible opportunities for people to get new jobs and to get ahead. But they have to have skills to get those jobs. They have to have, it may be a medical skill. It may be a skill in precision or additive manufacturing. It may be a skill in another field or another trade, plumbers, electricians, all of those. And so what we've done is we've really built ourselves to get a little bit closer to the businesses, to better understand the specific skills that they need, and then to deliver those skills for those businesses.
Let me ask you this, just as an example. Let's say I'm going to pick up on exactly what you just shared with our audience. I'm in manufacturing, and I'm having extreme difficulty finding people with the skill that I need. So I call you up because I know of your vision and your commitment. And I said, David, I need help. I need people trained on this type of machine that's going to deliver the product that we are producing. What do you do with that conversation? How do you handle that request?
So most of those conversations either get sorted over or are fielded directly by Dan Bellier, who runs our Maine Quality Center program. Now, the Maine Quality Center program is a program that was set up years ago under Governor McKernan, actually, but has transitioned to meet the current needs of the economy. And so the first thing we would do is start to develop an understanding of what those core skills are. And then we can build a program, and we can do this in a very short-term model. We can build a program that brings people into that program, delivers the skills they need for that specific business. Sometimes we're talking to an industry group. We've talked to Hospitality Maine. We've talked to the Maine boatyards. And they've come together with a common skill set because there's a demand. There's a demand for employment in the workforce, in the workplace, but the skills aren't there. So, for example, today, right now, Dana, there are 33,000 people unemployed in the state of Maine. And Indeed lists 15,000 job opportunities. Those 33,000 people don't have the skills necessary to qualify for those 15,000 opportunities that are listed out there and available to them. Most of the people who are unemployed right now come from very low skilled professions. They've oftentimes worked, they may have worked in hospitality, they may have worked in retail, but they don't have the skills that are necessary for that manufacturing firm that you're talking about. So we can bring them in, we can deliver those skills. Now, those are short-term skills, that's short-term training. So what we're building is a platform that links those short-term training opportunities to higher order training opportunities. They may be advanced skill development opportunities. They may be some of those what we call soft skills sometimes, the ability to work in groups, the ability to analyze a problem and solve it. the ability to communicate effectively, either in writing or just having a conversation the way we are. And we can begin to skill up that workforce from within. Eventually, what we want to do is be able then to put together a portfolio and lead that student back to a degree. Because you mentioned the Maine Spark initiative for credentialing our workforce. That's actually been written into law.
Yeah.
And we have a long way to go to achieve that. But Maine Spark, together when they passed a law through the legislature, recognized that the economy, to grow the economy, it needs a skilled workforce. It doesn't just need people, it needs a skilled workforce. And so we have to generate those skills. I will tell you, Dana, the pandemic has really exasperated and accelerated that problem. So as we sit here today, job opportunities for people who have skills, jobs making more than $60,000 a year, have actually increased from last January through today, increased double digits, 12%.
Amazing.
But jobs for people who don't have skills, the minimum skill levels, who are making very low wages, sub $25,000 a year, those job opportunities have decreased 27.6%.
Yeah.
So when we look at the unemployment rate today and we see, well, from a year ago, it's gone from 2.9% to 4.9%, I think is the number. It's gone up a lot, about 150%. It really misses the fact that there's been an erosion of job opportunity for people without skills and an increase in opportunity for people with skills. And the people without skills are running into glass ceilings. They can't get that job. It's no longer an era where you can go to work on the shop floor in that manufacturing firm that you're talking about and grow your way up. You need skills to get started. Once you get started, there are incredible opportunities in this economy.
Yeah, I mean, your point is so well taken that skill is the game changer today. That when you look around during this pandemic, and even though so many businesses have suffered, there are those few that have done well. Think of the home repairs and what goes with home repairs.
Exactly.
They have been doing great. It is a game changer, and the pandemic, use your words, has brought that front and center so that you recognize it. How has, notwithstanding the pandemic, but placing the emphasis on the value of skill today in our economy, what has your enrollment been? I've got to believe it's increased.
Enrollment patterns. So from the era when Maine Spark first put out those objectives to today, we've had significant increases in enrollment. The pandemic itself has complicated a person's ability to go to college.
Absolutely.
But by and large, enrollment in our core programs has increased. Enrollment in our short-term training programs has increased exponentially. Those increases are significant. It does have to do with some of the mindset of people today, both on the employment side and the people looking for work. You know, we do live in this point, click, and deliver economy.
Yep.
And so people are looking for a shorter road, a quicker road to get there. And the short-term training offers that quick training that gets them the skill that gets them in the door. Then in order to grow, we need to continue to work with them. We need to continue to advance those skills. So it's been perplexing, but enrollment continues to grow in the community colleges, notwithstanding the pandemic issues, and they grow in our base programs. Healthcare has huge growth opportunity in it. The manufacturing sector, huge growth opportunity in it. You mentioned the building trades, the need for home repair, electricians, plumbers, all of those core trades. If you don't believe me, just try and get one to come over to your house tomorrow to
Exactly.
get them fixed.
Yeah,
the demand is incredible.
I was going to say the thing that should not be overlooked either is the way that the system is working today. Not only are there multiple ways to be successful in our economy vis-a-vis education, but the fact that the student in high school can earn a couple of credits that give them a head start into a 4-year degree or associate degree, that you and the university work closely together, that you have those stackable credentials, like you said, that you can build upon the other. That when I look at where the systems, both public institutions, are today, and the way that you have been able to really redesign yourselves to meet the needs of the economy, my hat's off to you. I think you've done an amazing job, and I think it's so fundamental to our economic success. I don't know how best to describe it other than say, nice job.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been a transformative era. Before the pandemic, higher education was slated, it really needed to make some changes. I think the most dramatic changes are happening at community colleges across the country. And, you know, our friend Heather Johnson does make the point that we need to invest across the entire higher educational platform. The entire spectrum needs investment. Those talent growing initiatives in the state plan that we talked about require additional master's level people, additional baccalaureate level people, but they also require the basic trades and the people who are going to do the work. I'll give you an example. At the University of Maine, they're developing new technologies for the use of paper, wood pulp coming out of our forests. They can make insulation for houses. They can make, you may have seen Eggs and Issues about a year ago, and I wore a pair of socks that actually came from wood fibers. So it's being used in the manufacturing of clothing. But in order for Maine to capitalize on the technologies that are being built at the University of Maine system, they also need the loggers who go into the field. And trust me, they don't go in with axes anymore. They're driving $1 million pieces of equipment that are very sophisticated, and the knowledge they have to harvest that forest effectively is incredible. So that's the workforce that we're training, and it works entirely through the system. It's really quite magnificent. But I do think that to strengthen your earlier point, it really is the community college sector that is most prone to changing and meeting those core needs for that portion of our economy that needs some skills to get ahead, needs some skills to sort of lift themselves up and get themselves some traction in this economy.
Yeah, I that's to me is a point well made, and I think one that we are all witness to, and appreciate the fact that has become a strength of our system as well to serve the economy. Let me ask this, we're kind of hitting up against the edge of time, but I did want to ask you about the pandemic. How has a pandemic changed not just the way you deliver it? I think we're all familiar with nothing's the same until we get herd immunity, but at the same time, I know you've stepped forward to help the hospitality industry. I've heard you mention of this divide between actually the skill and the unskilled, but how has the pandemic changed what you are currently doing at this moment?
I would say that the pandemic, this is true in so many conversations. It's not so much that it's a radical change as it's an acceleration of the work that preceded the pandemic. So, and we started our conversation by noting that the community colleges have gotten closer to business. And so when we saw the hospitality industry so disaffected by the pandemic, we partnered with Hospitality Maine. Again, that's an example of working with a trade association, and developed some skill sets and put them in badges so that they were recognizable. But they were skill sets necessary to help those businesses reopen safely. Now the businesses are taking those badges and they're putting them in their window. They're putting them on their Facebook pages so that their customers know that their employees are trained and this is a safe place to go. So that responsiveness, that ability to turn on a dime, recognize a need, to fill a need that a business has really accelerated during the pandemic. And it's really helped Maine's economy stabilize. I think you know as well as anyone, the economy is actually doing much better than we thought it would be at the beginning of this pandemic. We've recovered much more quickly. We've created job growth opportunities. And it's because on the one hand, we've managed the pandemic. Our virus counts are relatively low compared to our sister states. And we've really done a good job of then building ourselves so that people know that this is a good, safe place to come and visit, a good, safe place to come and spend your money. And so we want to help build that brand.
David, I wish we had so much more time because there's so much to say and you say it so well. I would say that as we close out that the only things I should say, that exceed your experience and your knowledge is your enthusiasm and commitment for what you do. And we're very grateful that is the case. I thank you so much for being with us today. And I look forward to working with you on behalf of the economy in the time ahead of.
It's always a pleasure to work with you, Dana. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's mine. Take care.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Well, let's now turn our attention to the advocacy team and let's get a glimpse into what is on the agenda for this week and perhaps a little peek into next week if we're prepared to talk about that. Things change fast. Actually, things are off to a relatively slow start for good reason, but we all know that before long, we won't have any trouble talking about issues because there'll probably be too many to talk about. So Pete, why don't you get us started?
Sure. We've got about 500 bills printed, which, is roughly a quarter of the bills titles that were submitted back in December. It is a slow start. Usually at this point, we'd have well over 1,000 titles printed. So they are, approaching this, I think, fairly methodically as not to overwhelm the committees. But be that as it may, there are a lot of public hearings that are starting to be scheduled and taking place. And I think you're going to talk a little bit about some of the hearings Ben has. I've had public hearings and testimony already in the Labor and Housing Committee, and Health Coverage and Insurance Financial Services have done the same. The one bill that we followed last week and testified on in opposition was LD 225. And that's a bill that would require employers to pay out any accrued but unused vacation time an employee may have upon cessation of employment, whether they have a policy that says they're going to do so or not. Maine law doesn't require employers to either pay people when they leave or even provide vacation time. It does require that they provide earned paid leave. And in the case of earned paid leave and any vacation time that's provided, the employee is only entitled to cash any accrued but unused leave out if the employer has a policy that says they'll do that. And if they don't, they can say you either have to use your leave or lose it, or maybe they don't even provide any vacation time. So this bill would require, whether an employer has a policy or not, you have to pay it out. It's a substantial departure from almost 40 years of employment law in Maine. It will be expensive for small businesses in particular, and it won't incentivize. It's a de-incentivizer for employers to provide, particularly small businesses who don't have to provide even the earned paid leave. Remember, that's only businesses with 10 or more employees. So if you have below 10 or more than 10 employees, I should say, if you have 10 or fewer, you don't have to do anything. And this bill certainly won't encourage that. The Labor Committee heard a public hearing on it. There was testimony in favor. There was testimony in support, in opposition, excuse me. And the bill will be scheduled for a work session sometime in the next couple of weeks. That's probably the most important bill we're following right now.
Thanks, Peter. Linda, conformity still hangs around. What's the latest?
Oh, yes, it does. The saga continues. In tax conformity, as you recall, tax conformity is really the degree to which Maine is going to conform or not conform to the federal government. And the issue really is centered around the Paycheck Protection Program and the expenses associated with that program, and really whether or not they're going to be taxed and how they're going to be taxed. Last week, the Taxation Committee reported out 3 reports. We just saw the report. We thought it was 2, but now it's 3. The first report is on the Republican side. They are urging full conformity with all of the business provisions to the federal government. The Democrats, 7 Democrats on the committee, are urging that the Appropriations Committee look at the governor's proposal, and really Governor Mills came out with a proposal last week that basically, it's a new proposal that basically would allow The Paycheck Protection Program loans up to $1 million to be tax-free. Expenses associated with those loans up to $1 million can be deducted. So that's a positive, that's hugely positive. However, loans over $1 million, while the expenses can be deducted, the loans will be taxed. So that is problematic to about 251 businesses in the state of Maine. The proposal covers around 99.1% of businesses, but we came out with a statement at the Maine State Chamber last week that we are urging full conformity on the PPP program. We feel very strongly that businesses, this was a program put in place by the federal government to really help businesses that are struggling through this pandemic. And we feel very strongly that it needs to be covered in full. So the third report out of taxation was by Senator Ben Chipman, who is the Senate chair. And he is urging the governor's original proposal, which would essentially be, while you could deduct the expenses associated with the PPP loans, the PPP loans would be taxable. So you'd have to add them back into taxable income. So there's 3 reports going to the Appropriations Committee. We're assuming either they're going to take this up. They've already had report backs on I think the majority of the other committees, with the exception of taxation. So I expect that they're going to take that up either this week or next week and discuss it. Language has not been drafted yet. The analyst for taxation is going to be working on that to draft the language associated with these reports, but that is the latest on tax conformity, and it is still, we are, very concerned about it.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I would only add that you mentioned there were 251 businesses that exceeded that million, and while they got the benefit of conformity up to that million, when they exceeded that amount, that it would be treated as regular income, and you could deduct the appropriate business expenses. But that's 251 businesses who are in that category, probably more than likely because they are the companies that have a larger number of employees, because the program is really built around retaining employees. And for that reason, they stand out. And we were asking, as you said, for equal treatment. They shouldn't be penalized because of it. We commend the governor. I mean, she did, as you relate her latest position to the first position, it's obvious that she listened to the concerns and she responded accordingly. 99.1% is very admirable when you think about the progress that was made in a short time. We just argue that those other companies with larger employees should be treated the same. That's what Congress intended, and that's what we hope will take place. It requires a 2/3 vote, at least to get it done before the April 15th tax date. So it'll be an issue that'll be front and center, and we'll be seeing more about it and more debate to follow. Ben Gilman, who is our general counsel for the chamber and also is the president of our Education Foundation, has 3 committees. All 3 of them are in the beginning stages, as we've already mentioned. A lot of meetings to get to know each other, not a lot of bills yet. Workforce will be a primary issue that we'll be following. We expect bills to come out of the Economic Recovery Committee that really looked at the strategic plan and said, here are bills that we can help fulfill the priority associated with talent. So there's a lot on his plate, as there will be on Pete and Linda's. And I'm very fortunate that I'm president of an organization that has the type of talent that we have at the State Chamber in our advocacy team. I thank the both of you today, and I'll see you at the office tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, guys. Oh, as we think about today's program, there is no question that workforce not only is, but should be a priority for our state. It's reflected in the governor's strategic plan. It's a priority that we spent considerable time speaking to today with President Daigler. But it's also something that that really takes me back. You see, I shouldn't admit this, but I've only had 3 jobs: city manager, commissioner of transportation, and here at the state chamber. And I can tell you that based upon my journey, there are 2 things that unite every person in the state of Maine. That's right. Every person, regardless of what they do, where they come from, or their political preference, everybody wants the economy to be strong and be vital and to serve our state. They also want our people, our young people in particular, to be prepared for that economy, to have the skills that they need. Yes, the economy and our people, particularly young people, unites all of us. It's a priority for every single one of us. So what does that have to do with education? I submit it has everything to do with education. But I think we are all aware that the economy of today is not our grandparents' economy. As President Daigler said, it's about knowledge, it's about technology, it's definitely about skill. It's played out on a global stage, specialty products, niche markets, and the educational system, like we heard back in 2015 on a national basis. When asked, the educational community said 72% of our people are prepared. Business community said, no, that's not the case, it's 42%. We learned from that report that we also, as we are to prepare our people, we need to be sure that we include those skills, those trades. Yes, the 4-year degree, the master's degree, the PhD is certainly a priority, but so isn't our trade, so isn't our skills, our 2-year degree, our associate degree, our community college system, the ability of each of those to work together on behalf of our people is something that we're doing today, and we're doing it well. It's also something that was brought forward, that sense of partnership where the business and education work together by a program here in Maine called Maine Spark. They sat around the table, they worked together, they came up with a goal that said by 2025, 60% of our people will have a credential of value. Yes, that's what's taken place here in Maine. As I think about it, it reminds me of that term, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because we have learned that success in education, like in so many things, means that you communicate with each other, you work together. It means that our higher institutions, our university, our community college work together. You can even get a credit in high school for college. That's what I mean. It also means that you need to have a goal. Our goal is firmly embedded in the strategic plan, something that the governor put forward and the business community adopts and supports throughout our state. That goal put talent, workforce as one of the top 3 priorities of our state. And yes, Maine Spark reinforced that by saying 60% will have a credential value by 2025. Yes, our economy has changed a lot in these past few decades, but you know what? The value of education, even though it has changed, has not been lost in importance. That's my take for this week. Stay safe and be kind to one another. Until next Monday at 3 o'clock, see us right back here. Thank you and have a great week.